to Protective Stadium this Saturday for Senior Day. They'll honor 27 seniors. So with that, I'll turn it over to Coach Mortensen.
Hey guys, look, again, this is obviously, I know I got to talk about after the game, a very disappointing game against North Texas last week. One, give them credit. Coach Morris has done a great job there. They've done a great job recruiting, do a good job coaching their players, good job instituting their scheme. We knew we were playing one of the top offenses in the country. I think they're currently 5th in the country in total offense. So we knew that was going to be a challenge. And, certainly we want to play better defensively. We got to get off the field and create more stops. But I think the part I was most frustrated and disappointed with is knowing that, hey, they're going to make some plays. They're going to score a little bit because you know how good they are. We got to do a better job on offense playing complementary football. And not from a production standpoint. We were very productive in a lot of areas. But we, one of our first principles, that we want to play with is not giving the game away and not beating yourself. And so that's something we did, and we did it early in the game. We had 2 turnovers early amidst, some pretty productive sequences. So that was really, really disappointing and frustrating, and just, again, not the kind of football that we want to be associated with, that we want our name on, and it's not what we want to be about. So, okay, let's talk about, just analyzing that further. This was a defense that going into the game, they're giving up 364 yards a game at North Texas. We had 478. And that wasn't all garbage time. A lot of that was early. A lot of that was prior to the half. We were over 50% on 3rd down. You do that every week, you're going to be near the top of the country. We were 4 for 6 on 4th down, which is pretty good. So we had 10 explosive plays in the game. So, and then the other thing, area of improvement we had was, we wanted to reduce the penalties. I think we had 3 on the game. So, our penalties were down. So those were the areas that were good and where we made progress and did a lot of good things. But again, to be moving the ball in the first series of the game and have a turnover, is a bad deal. Now at quarterback, we manipulated the cadence on the first turnover, and he thought he had a free play because they moved and he felt like they came across. And but still, not the right decision to make. And then then we fumble on the first play of the second drive. So when you're playing somebody that's that good and that good on offense, can't do it. So again, a lot of guys played really well in the game. You can't have that kind of production and not have guys play well. Javon Jackson had almost 10 yards a carry. Even if you take out his big one before the half, it's still 8.8, 8.9. And then you look at Hawkins had a big game. So a lot of guys did a lot of good things. Offensive line played really well in a lot of areas. So, but we have to, this is the next thing we've got to teach our players is you can't have these self-inflicted wounds. But again, give North Texas a lot of credit. They have a good program right now. But we felt like if we don't give the game away and play how we're capable, that's going to be a very competitive game and very competitive game late. So. Again, we have to improve those things. So that's what we'll be looking to do. Turn into this week. Before we talk about South Florida, just want to talk about a couple broader things. One, regardless of the circumstances, we want to finish this season strong. So that's really important. We have some, and again, that's just I think is going to reveal the kind of character, toughness, and what we're made of. And and really, we talk a lot about great effort regardless of the circumstances. So whether or not a bowl game is in play or any of those things, like that needs to be irrelevant. And then the next thing is we've suffered quite a few injuries. Those are things we're going to monitor in-house. I think most of our guys will hopefully be able to get back by game day, but those are things we're going to have to monitor through the course of the week. But we have a lot of guys that have invested a lot, that have put a lot of hard work in, and we've got we've got a couple opportunities here, but we got to focus on this one first to go play again, which is an awesome opportunity to go play a great team and play them at home. And again, what kind of character do we have, and what are we made of? This is a senior day for us, so we've got a lot of guys that we're going to honor, I think over 20 that will get honored prior to the game, so that's exciting for them, and really grateful for a lot of the guys that have been here and how they've stuck together through some adversity this season, and they've really been a joy to coach. It'd be hard to single them all out, but look at a guy like Cy McDaniel, who is went from a walk-on to earning a scholarship. J.D. Morgan is a guy that transferred here, transferred back home, that has been just nothing but consistent and a really good player for us and a leader. Isaiah Jacobs is a guy that, transferred to us and really got off to a great start. I can still remember 2 years ago when he's, ripping off a bunch of big runs against Tulane on the road, and we had those guys on the ropes. And he tore his ACL, and then comes back the next year and has another injury. And he's been nothing but steady, consistent, a really good leader on this team. So and I could go through the whole group, but really just grateful to have the seniors that we have here, and want to honor them this week. But at the same time, as we honor them, can't be a distraction. We got to stay focused on the game and the task at hand. So, in terms of South Florida, again, great team, great American Conference team. They've got a lot of big wins this year. I think a lot of people remember them beating the University of Florida. They're one. Coach Golish has done a really good job there. He's done a really good job in recruiting, building the roster, but it doesn't stop there. I think they've done a really good job developing their players, instituting their scheme, coaching them. So really in every area, and they do have really good schemes on both sides of the ball. Right now, I think they're fourth in the country in total offense, so that'll be another challenge again to take on an offense of that caliber this week. And then they're good on defense too. Todd Orlando has got a great reputation as a defensive coordinator. He's been there from the beginning with Coach Golish, and very familiar with him, and he does a great job. Their quarterback Byron Brown, has got over 2,500 yards passing. He's also their leading rusher too, at 841 yards rushing. So really good player there. They've got a number of good backs and receivers. So definitely going to be a challenge, but we're excited about it and excited to be back and protected this weekend.
Hey, Coach, just some of the missed tackles you saw in that game. What'd you make of that? And at this point in the season, how do you hope to try to correct that with 2 games left?
Yeah, I think we have to do a better job tackling, and that's been a little bit of a yo-yo. I think one of the points of emphasis has been to improve the tackling, and some of that is about how you practice. We've got to thud the runners in practice. We got to practice right with the right technique and wrap up and play long stride to short stride and just do a better job fundamentally of tackling. That's certainly a part of it, and those things again are still habits that we have to create in practice, and so that's been a point of emphasis. And then I think the other thing too is sometimes when your mind is clouded with, when you have mental clutter, sometimes you don't play as fast and as aggressive as you need to. I thought North Texas did a good job of doing some things, whether it's playing with tempo and pace, to maybe get guys to not play as confidently and as fast as they need to. So there's certain things, and Coach Russ, our defensive staff, they're aware of that. They're going to try to institute some things further to continue to help us there. But I would say if you reflect back, say, the Rice game or Memphis, I think tackling not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we've seen some progress. And so I think some of it you got to attribute not just to the fundamental part, but also, the mental clutter, are we playing with the kind of aggressiveness we need to, because there's some doubt too at times.
You mentioned about not being bowl eligible now, not having that out there. How do you go about, you can talk to them. I know you can talk to them and tell them, but are there other ways you can sort of keep them motivated and, that type of thing, especially in practice?
Right, yeah. Look, I think one, it's this. I mean, if you have an opportunity to play and compete, I mean, you should, if you're playing this game, I mean, you should want to give it your best, if you're a football player and a competitor. So it's like, that just, to me, it's almost like an obvious thing, but I know it's not everyone's wired that way, and not everyone's wired, from intrinsic motivation, if you will. But I think there's a couple ways to look at it, and this is something we talked about going back to when, we had, all the change prior to the Memphis week, is this. One, a lot of guys are still about the team. They're bought into the team, they believe in each other, they love each other, and they want to go, play for UAB and for the guy to the left and right of them. And so I think there's that part too. At the end of the day, we're going out there playing, that running back is counting on the left guard and the left tackle, and, everyone's counting on each other. And so I think if you care for each other and the guys in the locker room, you're going to go give your very, very best in the practice weekend on game day. Then there's another layer, okay? Talk about this in football. The video is your resume. If I want a job, most of the time people are going to ask for a resume, right? Well, what's my resume in football? It's really 2 things. It's the video and it's your reputation, in the locker room and amongst your coaching staff, amongst your teammates. And so this is an opportunity for a lot of guys, some of which that want to still have an opportunity to play professionally, play in the NFL. A lot of them, are going to want to still stay at UAB. Whatever happens here, they're going to want to be a part of this program. And I still believe this program has an incredibly high ceiling. I think we got resources, people around here that care. We got great geography, so I think there's every reason for a lot of these guys to want to stay a part of this program. And if you want to do that, you're going to finish the season strong. And then there's another category of guys that are going to have their eyes in the portal. Well, of those 3 categories, does it serve any of them to not give their best for 2 weeks? The answer is no, it doesn't. And so the best thing to do is for these guys to go build their resume more by putting great things on video. And then the other thing too, my former, boss used to talk about this a lot is, he'd give this speech, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but he'd talk about and or but. And he'd say when, you're getting evaluated as a player, they'll tell you, hey, this guy's got great balance, body control, he's got short space quickness, makes contested catches, this, that, the other. And then there's going to be a point in that write-up, it's going to say, and has great character, treats people well, teammates love him, is kind to the equipment staff, so on and so forth. Or that word's going to say, but poor academically, treats people poorly, selfish. So that's the other part too, is everyone's got a decision to make right now on not just the film they put out there, but how are you going to conduct yourself in the building? How are you going to conduct yourself academically? So, the best thing for everyone to do is to put their best effort, put their best foot forward right now. So to me, I think there are a lot of ways to frame that to the players, and I think they will understand that.
And I didn't spot Corey Milner the other day on the sideline. I don't know if he was there or not. I didn't see him. Is he still with the team, and was he there?
Yeah, Corey is, we're handling that internally, but, really like Corey and believe he can have a very bright future, and just a couple things we're handling internally right now. That's all I'll say there.
What went into the decision to start Jalen over Ryder in that matchup? What was your ultimate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, look, both guys are really good players. I think both of them have a bright future playing football. Ryder's obviously younger, and Ryder he's a really good player. He's a good young player. I think he's going to be a great player. He's smart, intelligent, works really hard. I think we got to see him play, great football against Memphis here at home, where he went like 20-27 and led us to a big win and commanded the game really well. And then again, I've mentioned this post game. I think the quarterback position, often gets too much blame and too much credit a lot of the time. And believe me, I'm as hard on these guys as anybody. I really am. But you look at Jalen Kitna. I mean, prior to his injury, talking about this season, not a year ago, this season, this guy was playing pretty well, by and large. I'm not saying he played perfectly. He was playing pretty darn good. Guy was like second in the country in completions per game. He was leading the American in passing, which is pretty tough to do in a really good league. And so, I know. So here's my point. Jalen was playing really good football at the time of his injuries, and he had 2 significant upper body injuries. We haven't been very specific about disclosing what those were. Probably came back too quick. And that's really on me. I probably should have pumped the brakes on that. He was eager and ready to get going. But upon him getting healthy, wanted to start him and get him back out there and playing. And I thought he played really well in this game. I mean, again, we were over 50% on third down. A lot of that was him. This guy we had 10 explosive plays in the game. I think the one turnover late, and he was trying to throw the ball out of bounds. It was bad. He's kicking himself. He knows you get outside the tackle box, you have to throw it into the first row. So, but anyway, those are some of the things that factored into him playing. I know I'm going to get criticized, and I get it, for, Ryder came in and on the first series and had an interception. As I mentioned, he thought he had a free play on that. And I joked after the game. I mean, it's not that it's a laughing matter, but 1997, Steve Spurrier is playing, Florida State when they're ranked second in the country. He rolled his quarterback every single play, and they won the game. They had 499 yards offense. They had no picks. So, at the end of the day, we trust Ryder. We're confident in him. If we'd thrown a trick play pass with the receiver, I'd rather put Ryder out there, and let him make a decision. So, still have a ton of confidence in him. So, anyway, really like both guys, but Jalen, this has been Jalen's job, and didn't want him to lose that job to injury, and have a ton of confidence in him.
And he was 1 of 8 on deep balls last weekend.
Right.
Does that have to do anything maybe with the shoulder, or was that more just circumstantial with
Well, we wanted to take some shots, in the game, when they're playing tight coverage, and it's a two-way street too. Like, we got to win on routes, we got to compete for the ball too. We give you a chance to win on a 50-50 ball. Like, we got to go get it. And I think our receivers are playing really well, but there are still some opportunities there to go, win on some of those as well. And some of it, it's the routes, putting yourself in position. Some of it's tracking the ball and competing for it, when you're getting tight coverage. So, and then, some of it is quarterback play too, and accuracy. But again, this is a team that was 8th in the country in pass defense going in the game, 8th. And they were giving up 160 yards a game, and Kitten went out and threw for like 288. So, he did a pretty good job, passing against these guys. And it was not like they just went and played soft coverage the whole game,
His shoulder was affecting.
No. I'm sorry. You had to specifically answer your question. No, I don't. I think his power is pretty well back. I really do. Yeah.
It's just on Jalen for a second. How did you think he handled the whole just emotional part of this whole thing? Being injured. Yeah. And then having to sit and watch, and then Ryder hadn't getting a lot of attention for his game. How do you think he handled that part and that aspect of this thing?
I think Jalen handled it really well, and I think he's really had really good maturity about him. Stayed engaged, even when he was hurt, and Ryder obviously had a good bit of success, and stayed paid attention in walkthroughs, still helped. Tried to help Ryder in game, was helpful in meetings. So Jalen has been nothing but a pro, through all of it.
And with Brandon Hawkins, his first year he had injuries and kind of went through a lot. How much have you seen him sort of develop as a player, and maybe even as a person in his time you've known him here?
Yeah, Hawkins is a guy that we signed like as soon as we got here, and he's a guy that played some quarterback in high school. He was played some junior college receiver, and we've really seen him grow and develop a lot. I think early on he was a guy that was get the ball in his hands quick. He could do some things with it. But what's been fun to watch is him really develop into a complete receiver, that has nuance to his route running, and just his overall skill set. I think Coach Garver's done a great job with him too, coaching him and teaching him. So we're just and he's been very unselfish. He's a hard worker. He's a great team guy. I really love him, and it's been despite the outcome last game, which was frustrating, and I was certainly as angry about it as anybody. I was glad to see him have some individual success. I really was.
Coach, just given that frustrating nature last week, being at home too, how important is it to try to give the fans something this week in this home finale, especially just considering the nature of this season and what's going on?
Yeah, one, I want to say this, like the people that have been supportive, like I really do appreciate our fan base. I know there are a lot of people that care about our program and care about UAB football. I also know there are a lot of people that are frustrated. I understand their frustration. I have, look, if they have a standard, like, believe me, like, I got a standard. We have a standard that, we expect to meet, and we're working every day to get closer to, everyone understanding what that is and what it needs to be. So, but I really, we're really appreciative of them, and we've had a lot of people reach out, even after the Memphis game. You'd be amazed just at some of the encouragement and people reaching out and people that want to help the program in a lot of different ways. So we're really grateful for that, and we certainly we want to finish the season the right way. One, because we have a standard we want to adhere to. Two, for our players and for these seniors that are going out, but absolutely for the university, the program, the fan base. It's really important to us to play the right way, and so that's it's a big deal. And with this being the last home game, it's a great opportunity to do that.
How do you feel like Baron Franks played on Saturday in his first start in that situation? And he's a guy that was competing for a starting job and didn't win it, and it's probably been a little frustrating season for him. I mean, how do you think he played, and how do you think he handled this whole season?
Baron Franks, I think, has played really well, and Baron is a guy that, as you pointed out, was, had an opportunity to start at one point, and had an injury that put him behind for a while, and I think that was tough for him. But we really love Baron, and Baron's done a really good job here. He's practiced hard, he's working hard, and he's been very dependable and reliable coming into the game. And so we're really glad we have him. I hate what he went through early in the year. with the injury. But man, he's really stepped up. And even, you mentioned his first start, but he's played in some other critical moments for us this year and really helped us.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, great. Thanks, guys.